Hello everyone, welcome to Onion Skin, the finale of the Roughing an Epic Punch series. It's all finished now, have a look. Yeah, look at him go. It's changed a little bit since we last saw it. I added a few more frames without recording it, because I thought it'd be a bit easier to go through it here in post. So let's break it down and have a bit of a closer look. You can see everything that we originally did has survived through to the end. There's the rough layer back here, which plays as it did, although it is a bit more spaced out now. You can see towards the beginning here, there's this chunk of frames and this chunk of frames which have been given a bit more space, and it looks a bit slow in this section. But when we have a look at the rough, or the final in this case, you can see it has become a lot smoother, more gradual. I continued to add frames in there until it started to look a lot better. Having a closer look at the pacing here, you can see between the first two keyframes there's now 3 extra drawings which gradually ease the hand into this first resting pose where it's pointing straight at the camera. What's happening here is in-betweening and ease. So to demonstrate here, on frame 1 there's the circle, and on just on frame 3 I'll put another circle over here, and naturally the in-between is going to go directly in the center. Fair enough. Now to make it look like it is gradually slowing down, the next in-between in this gap here is going to go directly between these two. I'm going to ignore this one here completely, make another gap in between the one at the end, and I'm going to do this once more. Put that circle in there. That's very crude, but this should demonstrate the idea that you can see how it will slow down towards the end of the animation in this very quick piece. So that is what's happening here as the hand moves up. Moving on to the next section, I've also added a few more frames in here as the hand will begin to move back down again, and put emphasis onto the face and onto the hand that is going to come towards camera and swing around. So here it's quite different. Between this key and this key there is one breakdown, but it is not directly in the middle. There is 3 in-betweens between this key and this breakdown, and only 1 in between here. Why is that? So having a look at the first part of the movement again, you can see there is a lot of anticipation. This is building up towards the fast movement, so it slows down towards the hand and then will gradually speed up again before coming to rest in this position, which is immediately before it'll ease back out again, moving around his face, so we get a good look at it there. And coming to this key here is when the movement changes dramatically. So here we're rotating around from the hand to the face, and after this the focus has now shifted from the hand to the face, and finally after this keyframe is when the focus has shifted from the face to the punching fist. You can see moving between this key and this breakdown, the frames are in 3s, so there's less drawings at higher exposure, which creates a slow yet constant movement, as opposed to this one, which focuses on a slower movement, but the pacing is gradually changing throughout. After this breakdown on frame 32 is when the punch itself finally begins. You can see it's after halfway of the overall movement itself, and it's when things pick up pace very dramatically. All of this here is in 1s. There is 4 frames in a row that only get 1 frame of exposure each. A few either side are all in 2s, before finally at the end it gradually slows back down to 3s, and the final frame will rest at 5. Yeah, 5. Okay, so having a look at these ones that all play in 1s, let's just watch that a few times. It's pretty quick. In fact, so fast that this frame here, I added in what was mentioned in a previous video, which is called multiples. You can see the fist is drawn multiple times, forwards and backwards, to make the movement appear faster still. Within this period of time, a lot happens. We're fairly zoomed in on the face before. After this frame, you can see the camera has zoomed out quite a lot and will then rest at that zoom level until the end of the animation. Now let's have a look at the quality of the drawings themselves. You can see a distinctive difference between what is a key and what isn't. This was the first main drawing that we fleshed out completely, decided how the character was going to look, how much emphasis was going to be on the face, etc, etc. Now have a look at the frame immediately before it. Oh dear. It's not quite as pleasing to look at. This frame just before it has a break around the nose. This one's looking all kinds of unusual. And you can even see there's a couple here where look at the foot, you can see it actually vanishes for a frame or two and isn't anywhere near perfect. But how much did it stick out to you before I pointed it out? So I'd like to encourage that it's not that big a deal. Try to be accurate, but it is okay to be rough. After all, that's the whole idea. You don't want to spend too much time on this stage of the process. You're trying to get something that's convincing and looks good before you'd spend some time doing cleanup and going over it with a bold line, which is a bit more of a, I'd say, a therapeutic process. Although certainly not a time-consuming one. To get a feel for the balance on how loose things can be, I'd encourage you to have a look at probably anime in particular, like have a look at some fight scenes in films and TV shows and flip through it frame by frame and have a look at what the in-betweens in those shows tend to look like. And hopefully you'll start to get a bit of an idea on how far you want to push your own drawings. Of course, the more accurate, the better. And if every frame looks like it could be a poster, then all the more credit to you. But you probably won't be seen as a complete dropkick if you're not doing that right away. If you have any other questions, please leave them in the comments. I may do a follow-up video answering any of those queries and going into a bit more detail. And along with that, I'd love to see your own attempts. If you followed this tutorial along and do your own epic punch video or another animation using similar steps to this, if you're okay with me doing so, it would be a huge thrill to put them all together in that follow-up video and we can see what everyone's animations are looking like. That'll be so much fun. So to briefly recap everything that we've covered. First, just have a really good strong think about exactly what you want to do. It's important to be very clear just so you can hit the ground running with confidence. Next, go out and shoot some reference material. Take photos of yourself or a friend, do some sketches, find some images online, do whatever it takes to make that vision of yours even clearer. And then you can use that resources directly within the software. Bring it all together in a program of choice. This was using Harmony 12 Premium, which is, of course, not cheap. I do recommend Harmony Essentials. It's very affordable and very easy to pick up and use. Pretty much everything covered in this series you can do just fine there. Arrange all your resources into the order that you want. Pick out the key moments and the key poses. Sketch over them very, very roughly, just so you can get rid of the references and work with just what you've got. Fill in the gaps with your own drawings, tracing the in-betweens, and pace out the frames so that the amount of time that the animation covers is exactly what you want it to be, and the movement looks appealing no matter how crude and gross your drawings are. From there, pick 1 or 2 frames and clean up the character as best you can and make it look how you want it to be, and this will be your foundations throughout the rest of the animation, what you're going to be referring to keep hands the shapes that they are, faces the shapes that they are, etc. It's not compulsory, but it can be a good idea to map out which images are going to be important. These are called key poses. If you're lucky enough to have Harmony Advanced or above, you can map out which frames are keys or breakdowns and get a very clear idea on what everything's going to look like before you actually make any commitments to it. Finally, you get to the crux of the whole thing, where you just turn on the onion skin and start mapping out all the in-betweens and fleshing everything out. It's where most of the animation happens, but it's also where there's not as much to talk about. You kind of just go, and if you struggle with it, it's something that you just keep practicing at and you get more of a natural feel for. Keep watching the animation over and over again, flipping back and forth between your frames to make sure everything's looking good until you feel that it's done. And that, at long last, everyone, brings us to the end of the Roughing an Epic Punch traditional animation series. Thank you so much for sticking with this all the way to the end. It's been a long one, to say the least. I've taken your feedback into account already, and I really appreciate it. We'll continue to see more improvement as all of these animation tutorials continue to roll out. Thanks for coming by. I hope you got something out of it. If you got stuck somewhere or something was a bit tricky, or if you have an idea for something else you'd like to see in a video, please let me know. In the meantime, you can check out some of my other stuff in those links just there. But thanks again, and I'll see you again soon.